morning, boys and girls of all ages. How you guys doing today?
Good, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, today we're going to actually start on page 86. A successful leader must understand and apply the principles of cooperation and effort, and he to be able to use his followers to do the same. Leadership calls in power, and power calls cooperation. There are two forms of leadership. The first, and by far most effective, is a leadership by the consent of, in which the sympathy of the followers. The second is leadership by force, without the consent and sympathy of the followers. History is filled with evidence of leadership by force that cannot endure. The downfall and the disappearance of dictators and kings and significance, it means that it will not only will not follow forced leadership indefinitely. Napoleon, Mussolini, Hitler were examples of leadership by force. Their leadership passed. Their leadership by consent of the followers is the only hand in which they can endure. Men may follow by the forced leadership temporarily, but they will not do it willingly. The brand new leadership will embrace the 11 factors of leadership described in this chapter, as well as some of the other factors. The man who makes these the basis of his leadership will find an abundance of opportunity to lead in any walk of life. There are 10 major causes of failure in leadership. We come now to the major faults of leaders who fail. Because it's essential to know what not to do as it is to know what to do. Inhabitually to organize detail. Efficiency leadership calls for the ability to organize and to master details. No genuine leader is ever too busy to do anything in which may be required of his capacity of leadership. When a man, whether he is a leader or a follower, admits that he's too busy to change his plans or give attention to an emergency, he admits his inefficiency. The successful leader must be the master of all details connected with his position. That means, of course, that he must acquire the habit of regulating details to capable lieutenants. Unwillingness to render humble service. A true great leader are willing, when occasionally deemed to perform any short labor which they would ask another to perform. The greatest among all shall be servants of all. It is a truth in which all leaders observe and respect. Expectations of pay for what they know instead of for what they've done. The world does not pay men for what they know. It pays them for what they do or induce to others. Fear of competition from followers. The leader who fears of one of his followers may take his position is practically sure to realize that the fear sooner or later. The able leader trains, understudies to whom he may delegate at will any of the details of the position. Only this way a leader may multiply himself and prepare himself to be at many places at once and give attention to many things at one time. It is eternal truth that the men receive more pay for their ability to get others to perform than they could possibly earn by their own efforts. An efficient leader may through his knowledge of his job and that magnetism of his personality greatly increase the efficiency of others and induce them to render more service and better service than they could render without his aid. Lack of imagination. Without imagination, the leader is incapable of meeting emergencies and creating plans by which to guide of his followers' efficiency. Selfishness. The leader who claims all honor for the work of his followers is sure to meet by resentment. The really great leader claims none of his honors. He is content with his honors when there are any. Go to his followers, because he knows that most men will work harder for condemnation and recognition than they will for money alone. Interprets. Followers do not respect the interpreted leader. Moreover, intemperance is one of the various forms that will destroy the endurance and the vital for which who indulge in it. Disloyalty. Perhaps this should be one of the head of the list. The leader who is not loyal to his trust and his associates, those above him and those below him, cannot long maintain his leadership. Disloyalty makes one of its being less than the dust of the earth, and brings down one of the head of the contempt he deserves. Lack of loyalty is one of the major causes of failures in every walk of life. Emphasize of the authority of leadership. The efficient leader leads by encouraging and not by trying to instill fear in the hearts of his followers. The leader who tries to impress his followers with his authority comes in with the category of leadership through force. If a leader is a real leader, he will have no need to advertise the fact expected by his conduct, his sympathy, understanding, fairness, and demonstration that he knows his job. Emphasis of title. The competent leader requires no title to give to him to respect of his followers. The man who makes too much over his title generally has little else to emphasize. The doors to the office of the real leader are to open all who wish to enter, and his working quarters free from formality and obstination. There are among more common causes of failure in leadership. Any one of these faults is sufficient to induce failure. Study the list carefully. If you aspire to be a leader or be in leadership, make sure that you are free of these faults.
Right? Or am I the only one? All right, so today's title of our mastermind is going to be 4 ways to help buyers discover more of the properties that they need to discover. David, you're going to like buyers when they become million-dollar buyers. So anyway, I want you guys to really focus on this, because I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about sales today. And it's a great opportunity for you guys, everybody, Estella included, Catherine included, for you guys to really grab onto what I wanted you guys to learn today. So how many of you guys have identified that COVID-19 was a reality, but now it's like all of a sudden magically disappeared? I was even driving on the freeway yesterday, and for the last 2.5 months, I had been seeing like stay home COVID, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, don't drink and drive. And I'm like, whatever happened to COVID? You guys made it. Yeah, they completely forgot about it. So the reality is that you guys need to help more buyers that are going to be coming into the marketplace. I worked Saturday and Sunday. I picked up some contracts, and I feel very, very good about the market. I just want to find out what I can do to help you guys get more contracts, show more properties, and be more effective with buyers and sellers. Does that make any sense? Because if I'm getting contracts on the weekend, you guys should be doing the exact same thing. So write this down. I want you guys to understand the number one thing that your job entails. The number one thing you guys are hired for is to make match. You guys are matchmakers. Does that make any sense to you guys? Somebody goes to you and requests a specific type of property. Your job is not to sit there and just let the client do the work. Your job is to go and actually find something that your client can say, hey, I want this property. Does that make any sense to you guys? So have a clear understanding that you guys are matchmakers. So number one, write this down. You need to find hidden gems for your customers. There is a ton of hidden gems out there. You guys want to know what I mean by this? There is properties out there that have been sitting on the market for 3 months or plus that require very, very small modifications that can help your clients get themselves a good deal. Does that make any sense to you guys? Yes, David.
actually saw one of those properties this weekend. I was beating myself up that I didn't see it before it got swiped up. It was another land deal. It was 2.5 acres with a well, fenced up with a garage, sold for $8,000. The guy just bought it like 6 months ago. Now he's reselling for like $50,000.
Wow.
There's like gems out there.
And what was the modification? Do you think was there any modifications that had to be made, or you just more research would have got you there?
That I need to do to notice those type of deals?
Yeah, or what could you have done?
What I was thinking is, you know, the Flex MLS, you could put like the reminders if something pops up in the criteria.
Right.
Put those up.
And you know what? And that's funny that you touched that, because I should have added this to my points when I was writing them last night. But that's what I constantly do with borrowers. If I have buyer A looking for a specific property, I will add myself onto the MLS, so that every time a new property at 1 a.m. sometimes I'll get a text or an email saying brand new property pulled up on the MLS, and then they'll even say the customer's name, because I've identified for it to email it to them, email it to me. Does that make sense? So that's a great point. That's something I should have wrote down here, but write it down anyway. Like, do auto auto suggestion for MLS. You got to put that on there. I do it all the time, and walking around the sales floor today, the minute that I get one, I'll show it to you guys. But that's a huge point. Maybe you should set that up so that the properties are popping up constantly. You're in front of the consumer. But identify those hidden gems. There's very small modifications that can be made to properties, but most people don't look at them because the agent doesn't have the experience necessary to help the client towards those modifications. I wrote down number 2 after thinking about modifications. You have to have the resources to provide solutions. Write that down. I need to have resources to provide solutions. In the past, I've spoken to you guys about having a list of service providers. That is imperative for you guys to experience success if you guys are going to find gems. So what I would recommend for you guys to do, and I wrote this as a side note, is you need to have a strong network of contractors that can give you an estimate immediately. Does that make any sense to you guys? And I'll give you an example right now, but write that down. Strong network of contractors. It doesn't necessarily have to be a general contractor. It could be an electrician. Let me give you an example. You go to a property, you went on the MLS and you're like, this property looks good. It's been on the market for 6 months. You do a little bit of investigation. You find out that the electrical panel is shot. That's why nobody wants to buy it. Wouldn't you think that the seller after 6 months is going to negotiate with you some type of deal? Absolutely, if they want to sell their house. So what I mean by resources is, hey, buyer A, I found a great property. The only issue it has is the electrical, but I've already scheduled an appointment with my electrician so that he could show up to the property and see how much it can cost to fix this issue. They give you the dollar amount. How difficult is it to go to the seller or give the seller in writing a addendum or some type of request for repair saying, my client will buy the property, but you got to get this fixed. If I have something I want to sell, you best believe that I'm going to get it fixed to get it sold. I have customers now that are so educated that are coming in and they're like, hey, by the way, I think there's termite. Let's get it fixed. I just don't want you to have any surprises. This is what I mean by identify gems. Like, for example, Abraham, you've been looking for a customer that's kind of difficult. They want a specific dollar amount, and for them, in their mind, they're like, I'm not going to go over 500,000 or 450,000. Find the gem. Find the gem that's in that price range that hasn't moved from the market that you haven't paid attention to. But with that, a great responsibility. You can't just sit back. You have to have the resources available. A plumber, a bunch of different things. So this is what I wrote down. If you have the resources to provide solutions, wouldn't you think that the customer is going to feel comfortable when making a decision to purchase something that's been sitting on the market for a very long period of time? So I'll give you an example. I put a deal into escrow Wednesday or Thursday. I forget the date. Could you believe that I literally had to take the general contractor, 2 meetings with the general contractor for the customer to feel like, oh, okay. Because now it wasn't Jesse saying, yeah, we could get this all fixed up with like 20, 30,000. Now it's a legitimate resource, a general contractor saying $50,000 to $60,000. Immediately she got those numbers, sent the wire. She's like, let's close escrow now. But do you see how I provided the resources? My resources may not be your resources. I encourage for you to have different resources because guess what, David? If you have that general contractor that's passionate about the fact that this young guy keeps providing potential clients, you don't think he's going to refer customers back to you? You don't think that he's going to find out that one day somebody that he's fixing a house for is going to list it? Guess who's going to get that first opportunity?
You are.
You are. Does that make any sense? Why you guys need to make sure that you guys have the resources to provide solutions. So I wrote down strong network of contractors can get you paid. And that's what it's all about. Number 3, and this ties into it, is sharpen your negotiation strategy. When it comes down to negotiating with buyers and sellers, you need to make sure that your skills are very, very sharp. What do I mean by that? Go and take a listing yesterday. And I already know that everything in the house is perfect except the driveway. Why would I not bring that up if I know that I'm going to have to negotiate it sometime within the contract? That's what I mean by sharpening your skill constantly. There's things that you're going to be afraid to mention. Those are the things that you should mention right away. Septic tanks. How many of you guys have dealt with septic tanks? I know I have in a lot of transactions. Sharpen your negotiation skills with septic tanks because you need to be very knowledgeable. How will you have knowledge about septic tanks? Because you have a very strong network of what? Contractors that are in that business already. Versus the normal agent. I'm telling you, on another representation of a customer that ended up going with another buyer's agent, which is okay, because we had already established that. His buyer's agent had the worst negotiation tactics because of his lack of resources. He was kind of like, yeah, just get credit, whatever. Can't do that. You got to make sure that you're walking people through this process so that they have a clear understanding. And the final way for you guys to create inventory for your customers right now is don't be afraid to stop by and talk to for sale by owners. You need to drive around the community. I would recommend going home, take a different route. Take 3, 4, 5 different routes. You're gonna come across a for sale by owner or somebody that wants to sell their property, and all you have to do is get off and start some type of dialogue with them, and I guarantee you they'll give you some type of compensation for bringing some type of buyer. Right now, you guys need to understand that a lot of these off-market deals are gonna be ready for you guys, but it's not going to work if you guys don't have the resources available. So how many of you guys find yourself having a lot of downtime in sales? I do. Sometimes I don't have I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to do. Where are the numbers? Can I give you guys a few tips on what to do while you guys are having this downtime? Because if you guys were working at any big bank, if you guys were working at Wells Fargo, if you guys were tellers, if you guys were in any type of corporate environment, they would require for you to train a specific amount of hours every single week so you could keep up with what the marketplace currently demands. So I wrote down things that you guys need to work on every single day as soon as you have downtime. And this is my favorite part of the business because right now, guess what? There's no open houses, right? So wouldn't you think there's a lot of consumer driving around just looking at the outside of homes? Yes, there is. A lot of it. And I know because I have a bunch of signs out there, and guess what? I'm getting a bunch of phone calls on sign calls. That only tells me that consumer confidence is really high. The community that I live in, I'm wondering how are they still doing so much business? Guys, the reality is that the pandemic is only in your mind. You're going to choose to have coronavirus if you choose to have coronavirus. But you got to get rid of that thought because it's no longer something that's affecting your industry. People are buying and people are selling. Interest rates are low. There's a lack of inventory. I can go on why you guys are going to be extremely successful if you guys take on these small sales activities. So create a to-do list on your left-hand side. This is your daily to-do list all the time. I like to have Siri give me some reminders. It's really up to you, but I still write down to-do lists. On the left-hand side, you're going to write a to-do list, and on the right-hand side, you're going to write a must-do list. There's some things that you must do. You have to do these things if you want to be successful. I've noticed that when you add stuff to your to-do list, a lot of these things become negotiable. Have you guys ever gone back and you're like, man, if you look at your to-do list, you're like, I never did this. I never did that. And all of a sudden you're like, 50% of the stuff I said I would do, I never did it. So can you guys embrace the concept of to do and then a concept of I must do? You must eat, right, to survive? So this is important. On your must-do list, you guys need to learn KV Core like the back of your hand. Let me tell you the reason why. The auto suggestions, the algorithms, what the consumer is looking at is being tracked by that, so that every single time they look at a property, you know what they're looking at and what they're liking. Why would you not invest some time to train on it? So I'm not telling you guys to be fanatical like me. When I get something, I want to do it for a million hours until I do it very well. No, 10 minutes. 10 minutes on YouTube. We've provided the resources on our private Facebook page where you can do some clicking of some YouTube videos and they'll teach you how to do input, data entry, and all that type of stuff. Those are must-dos. The other thing that is a must-do is run property profiles. I always like to say this because it was hilarious to me when I first got into real estate. I used to go to people's houses, and you know what I'm saying? Like I always listen to conversation about purchasing and all that stuff, and you know, everybody has like a housewarming party or whatnot. This is pretty mean that I did this, but anyway, here it goes. So like, yeah, we just bought this house, and I'm like, oh, interesting. So since I was first starting to learn the power of the property profile, I would go home and I would look at the invitation, and I'm like, oh, the address is here documented, right? I would go on the property profile and I would research it, and then I would find out all the information of the history, and I'm like, you're renting. But that's okay, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I was just trying to look at the property profile. So anyway, not to go on a tangent, but you guys need to be running constant property profiles on stuff. Does that make any sense? You guys need to run property profiles every single day. So you guys get it. I got so good at running property profiles that things that people and websites charge money from, I could find them on the property profile. That was mean, huh? You guys are looking at me like mean.
The homie Betty.
Yeah, man, I looked at all the property profiles, everybody. I knew who was like behind on the mortgage. I knew how to notice of default, everything.
Maybe short term.
I would even go to their house and be like, are you sure you wanted to buy that very expensive bag that you have? You're in default, so you punch it, okay, because that's the fact. But anyways, run profiles. Write that down. You need to run property profiles. Why? Because you need to have a clear understanding what's on title, what's on there, like how many deeds. Most of the time I go to properties and I already know 99.9% of the information. I just go and do a verification of their data. But commit to yourself that for 20 minutes, you're gonna run property profiles. When I first started, I would like to make assessments for customers like, hey, David, I don't wanna work with you yet, but I'm gonna run a property profile and let's have a real quick conversation about what's on your title. You're gonna discover that some of these clients don't even know that they have some liens that are, I did one for one lady when I first started to go crazy about property profiles. Her nephew pulled $100,000 equity loan. And he was one of those that, hey, come on, yeah, just sign the paperwork, man. We're fixing something for the house. And you know, we all have that family member that trusts you with a blindfold. And that's happened 10, 15 times. Those converted into sales because I was just going crazy about running people's profiles. I would even say if you have a customer that's engaged, have you seen the way our profiles look? You haven't seen them? Look, they look very legitimate. It looks like a document that was recorded by a very, very important financial attorney or firm or something like that. Does that make any sense? Grab, you have them? Where? Oh, okay, yeah. Look at all this information. Look, as a matter of fact, David's been going crazy on the profiles too. But you know, these are the ones that I always grab these and I'm like, man. So I send these out to the customer and it says First American and they think it's so legitimate, but this is another touch. Now you have an additional touch, and now they're like, oh my God, Edward really cares. He even went out of his way to send me this profile. You know how easy it is to do that? It's like, it's the easiest thing ever. I'm just trying to teach you sales strategy so that you guys can stay in front of the customer. So, can't even read my own writing, that's terrible. So here's the last thing that I want you guys to do. And these are must-dos every single day. You need to look at inventory. It doesn't matter what resource. If you're having a hard time logging into your MLS from your phone, go on Zillow, go on Redfin, go on Trulia, Realtor.com. Do all that. It doesn't matter. Be passionate about what's out there. But you need to check inventory every single day. David just lost $40,000 for not checking inventory. Does that make sense, David? Is that what you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Why would you not want to? That stressed out very hard. Why would you not want to check your daily inventory?
The crazy part about that, it's literally 5 minutes away from my old ranch that I sold to. It was like right in the neighborhood that I like focus on too.
Oh no, it's like right in your face, but you were too busy for it, huh? That's what it seems like. Yeah, I get those too. Like when I'm like the neighbor list, and it's like, we've been talking every single day for the last 3 years, and you know I'm in real estate. You saw my truck, like see me every day dressed up, and but it's just a little bit of tweaking here and there. But checking your inventory is very important. This is something that I'm going to hold you guys accountable to every single day. Check the inventory. Hey, some of these deals that are not even going to happen right there, but you call that customer and you're like, hey, I found this deal, $399. They go and they're like, this is a good deal, Jesse, but I don't know if I want this one. Let's look at more homes. Really? You want to look at homes now? Perfect. Let's go. But that's why checking inventory is so important. I would get out of my comfort zone, and after checking inventory, research comps. I want you guys to write that down. You know why? Because then you're going to start to determine who's a good agent and who's a bad agent. There's some properties that are listed so high that I like to call those properties hidden gems. And why do I like to call them hidden gems? Because I know that the agent that they're working with does not have sharpened skills. That agent doesn't have the courage. Like my neighbor in the front, they were renting out the house for $10,000. And there's been the traffic, because I look at it all the time, I'm just watching, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of people that are coming to look at it, but it hasn't gone under contract. Do you know what that means?
Overpriced.
That means that their agent doesn't have the courage to say, hey, we're $500 away from you being able to rent it. Why would you hold a property on the market for 3 to 6 months? Because you won't reduce it $500. What's 5 times 6?
35.
You've already lost $3,500 just from. But that all ties up to how sharp are your skills when it comes down to this stuff. So research the comps. If you guys are not familiar with Cloud CMA, you can even do buyer comps. I hate to be the agent that goes out there and just without any knowledge says, offer this amount of money. And I'm like, the per square foot cost doesn't even make sense sometimes. Let's take you to another area where you're going to get more bang for the buck. Does that make any sense to you guys? But you guys need to research the comparables. And the final portion of all of this is you need to write this down every single day. Like during my prospecting block, which I'll get into right now, when I start calling people, I don't know why everything that I didn't do in the last 2 days all of a sudden pops up. Like all of a sudden I got to do all this paperwork. All of a sudden I got to do all this stuff. Everything comes in emails, 911. My daughter's calling. My kids are calling. Everything pops up. I don't know why. I've learned that I have to train myself mentally, and on the left-hand side, I need to make sure that I have a to-do list. I am not going to stop because somebody else has a messed up schedule. So I'm doing what I'm doing, and all of a sudden I get this interruption, and the interruption is typically something that's going to keep me away from making money. I'll just write it down on that left-hand side. Take milk for the kids as soon as I'm done with my prospecting. Does that make any sense? go visit the schedule a doctor appointment as soon as I'm done with my prospect. So just to do a quick recap, the things that you guys need to do so you guys can engage in daily sales is help buyers find more properties. That's what they pay you for. And if you're out there working with buyers, I guarantee you that you're going to get sellers. For me, this is the numbers game for me. Every 2 buyers I work with, 1 seller is going to come out of it. Does that make any sense? Morning. Every 2 buyers that I work with, 1 seller is going to come out of it. Why would I not want to make $12,000 and then somehow get the opportunity to make another 7, 8, 9, 10? What I'm telling you right now, the strategy I'm teaching you is a very easy $20,000 a month. I just need you guys to take on these activities every single day so that once you guys are fully engaged in the activity, then you guys start to reap the reward of all the hard work and all the sales training that you guys have received. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.